over the weekend, Penn State swiped Ohio State's defensive coordinator. Jim Knowles is headed to State College from Columbus. They had the celebration in Columbus of the national championship team, and within like 30 seconds after it ended, we found out that Jim Knowles is going to Penn State.
Yeah, so there's two ways to tackle this. Do you want to take it from the Penn State angle first? Because I think that we should congratulate and talk about the winner of a big battle.
JC handily provided us with some Penn State talking points. The Andy Kotelnicki versus Jim Knowles, 21 possessions, 0 touchdowns situation vanishes. That also includes Kansas versus Oklahoma State a few years ago, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But also is Penn State's defense now better than it was with Tom Allen or Manny Diaz? I don't know. I think they were really good with both of those guys. And obviously Manny Diaz went on to become Duke's head coach, had a great first year at Duke. Tom Allen is going to Clemson, where he's got family down there. I think, I don't know. He's been in Indiana. He's been in the South. He's been a lot of places. So I don't know if that necessarily matters, but I think he's going to do great at Clemson. I think Jim Knowles will do just fine at Penn State.
Well, yeah, him doing fine is not my
right. He has to be dominant at Penn State. Yeah,
but I think that there are two ways of looking at it. And somebody tweeted this at me yesterday as I was driving from Dallas to Mobile in the rain. Not a highly suggested move on my part, but somebody tweeted at me and brought back a previous talking point that we had on the show to me on Twitter and said, "Do you still think that Penn State is not playing for national championships?" Because if you go back to the discussion that we were having about James Franklin at the time in which he got his 10-year extension, they weren't winning at the highest level when they gave him that, which to me I thought was an implication of 10 wins, 11 wins is enough. And now when you're starting to up the stakes, and I don't think the contract stuff is out yet, but there's no way that Ohio State lost him over this.
$3.1 million a year, which this wasn't over money. Ohio State was offering something similar. Oklahoma was offering something similar. And I don't think it went that far down the road with Oklahoma. I think they viewed that as a long shot.
2016 Fiesta Bowl, when Ohio State played Clemson, either I or my coworker was writing a story about, I think it was Brent Venables at the time, about being the first coach or assistant coach that was bordering $1 million a year in salary.
Yes.
And we haven't even made it a decade past then, and now we're at this point. I mean, that's an absurd amount of money.
It's crazy because they always said if you have to pay the players, well, there's no money for anything else. They keep finding money. Think about this. So Jim Knowles was going to, no matter what he decided, was going to be the highest paid defensive coordinator in college football and probably the first $3 million coordinator anywhere. So that happened. And then Shane Beamer got extended at South Carolina. So that's, he got a raise, a couple $1 million a year, and they put themselves on the hook for more if things don't work out. I think they have plenty of money. I think they were lying to us when they said if they had to pay the players, they wouldn't have any money.
$3.1 million a year for a coordinator is a pretty big investment. So I think that's
there are power conference head coaches who make less than that, one or two.
So, but that, does that change your viewpoint of Penn State's demands? Does a move like this, first of all, I think you can make the case that Penn State has the two best coordinators in college football, or the best coordinator tandem, I should say. So you add that together with James Franklin, and it creates and cultivates an environment where you're not paying all this money to finish third in the Big Ten anymore. You're paying this money to go get over the top and win the whole thing. So, Penn State has always had very good defenses. I don't know that I look at their defensive performances over the years and think, hey, that's the issue. But at the same time, too, you're talking about a defensive coordinator who had a wealth of talent. Let's not forget. It's a lot easier to scheme around Caleb Downs than it is other places. But they put it into a position where that was maybe the best defense Ohio State's had in the last decade.
He also didn't have nearly as much talent at Oklahoma State.
And they were also really
very
good.
Dominant defense there.
So from that aspect, though, Penn State, I think that you could make the case, and maybe this is a column, of okay, we're starting to step up into the realm of expectation that didn't, in my opinion, exist coming into this year.
Well,
and that's an exciting thing.
You win a couple playoff games, you go to the semifinals, and now it's all right. What can you do past that? And it's no longer you are blocked by Ohio State and Michigan in your own division. You're not blocked by them anymore. In fact, you lost to Ohio State and still played for the Big Ten championship and still went to the semifinals. So the path is open to Penn State. Now, as Justin pointed out in the chat, the defense isn't the problem. And some other folks have pointed out in the chat, hey, does Jim Knowles play receiver? Because that seems to be a bigger issue. Like, they've had to replace the defensive coordinator multiple times, and they seem to find somebody who's excellent, and they always seem to have excellent players. Like Denai Dennis Sutton's coming back.
Kind of funny to think that we're like, oh my God, they're paying a coordinator $3.1 million, and then like 3 days ago we were talking about how Jeremiah Smith was commanding $4.5 million.
I will say, 10 years ago, this is not something Penn State would have done. Penn State would not have set the market.
So you think this is an evolution in the program?
I think this is Pat Kraft being the athletic director for a few years now, and really, he came in saying, I would like for Penn State to try to act like it is serious about football. Penn State did not act the same way Ohio State did. It did not act the same way Alabama did, the same way Georgia did before Pat Kraft. It was Sandy Barber was a different AD, and she did not feel like football was that big of a priority. I don't think, at least, and that is the sense that the coaching staff got too. Well, now they have a guy who played college football at Indiana, who appreciates college football, and who was willing to open the checkbook. Now, I think that willingness to open the checkbook, as you pointed out,
comes with
serious expectations.
Yeah. And you know what? Good for them. My number one thing with Penn State's always been like, if you want better, then pursue better. And the fact that you're doing this, I think, is a sign of things to come, because there is a correlation between investment and commitment and results, right? It's the same thing like with dieting, right? Or anything else in life. Yeah. If you want to lose weight, you got to commit to it. If you want to make more money, you've got to commit to your plan on how to, this is what you do.
It's like my favorite trainer on Peloton, Selena Samuela, says, you can't be mad about the results you didn't get from the work you didn't do. Like,
is that person a man or a woman?
She is a badass former boxer.
She does that while you're riding a bike?
I don't ride a bike. She says it while you're running.
Is she running while she's saying it?
She is running, yes.
Yeah, I did a spin class once, and like at the end of the spin class, there was like a 5-minute reflection where I was like, wind down and think about all the things that ail you. I'm like, lady, I'm just trying to lose weight. Can we just pedal the bike and get the hell out of here? Like, I don't know. Does that stuff hit you, the motivational like talks while you're running?
I remember it, so it must.
Were you just like, oh, I'm going to run faster now because she said that?
No, I run faster when she says run faster. I run slower when she says run slower, and I run uphill when she says run uphill. I just follow instructions.
I need somebody in my face yelling, run, fatty, run.
Well,
but I don't know why I took it there, but
Pat Kraft, though, is saying that in his own way.
Run, fatty, run.
Yeah, right. Win, Richie, win. Because you are rich at Penn State. You do have resources. You do have money. You do care about football. And it is completely within the realm of possibility for Penn State to compete for national championships. We saw it this year. It's not like they are so far away from Ohio State or so far away from these teams that have been winning national titles. And like we keep saying, you're probably not going to see a roster as loaded as Ohio State's was this past year. AxiaTime.com. I've got my Odysseus 2 watch on. If you would like to commemorate either Penn State or Ohio State's trip to the college football playoff, go to AxiaTime.com. They have custom timepieces that commemorate all of the playoff teams' trips to the playoff, because they are the official timepiece of the college football playoff and of the Heisman Trophy. Also, if you're an Ohio State fan, they have some beautiful new Ohio State national championship watches that include confetti from the field. We actually saw them collecting it.
I had the picture. I sent it to River of the guy scooping the confetti. So
yeah. So if you want to go and look at these beautiful watches, AxiaTime.com is the place to go. They are Swiss made, automatic. They're beautiful. Everywhere I go, people ask me, where'd you get that? And the level of build on this thing, you're normally paying 3 times more, 5 times more, 10 times more if you're, in Ari's circles that he runs in.
Yeah.
But you don't need to.
That's right. You don't need to, because I overspent.
You can get a beautiful watch at AxiaTime.com and rep your team at the same time. So whether you're an Ohio State fan, a Penn State fan, Arizona State, Boise State, they're all there, but they're selling out fast. So AxiaTime.com, check it out, and everybody will ask.
I like the strap.
where you got yours. Oh yeah, the orange pops.
Is that rubber?
The orange pops. Yeah, and I also have a stainless steel, and I also have a leather one.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is outstanding, and you can dress it up, dress it down, however you want to do it. AxiaTime.com. So
Yeah,
now's your time, Penn State.
I do have this internal debate with myself, and I don't know what it is with Penn State. Where on one hand, it's like, okay, they were maybe a 5 minutes of real time performance away from playing for a national championship.
Oh, yeah.
this year, right? So that is
if
like,
Aller doesn't throw the interception,
yeah. I mean, they were going OT maybe, and you
or
have
they
a
kick
chance.
the field goal if they just run the
And
ball
they beat the
down
crap out of
into
Penn
field goal range.
out of Notre Dame for an entire half. So that's the first half, which is like clear, identifiable, statistical, results-driven improvement, right? Like there's
Right.
no doubt about it. But then on the other hand, it's like, oh, wait a minute, is this Penn State team the same team that it's been for the past 5 years, but actually was put in an advantageous position from their path to the playoff and wasn't really that much better than they've been?
Yeah.
And I don't know what the answer is. I'll let the chat decide or what you think. But like for me, it's like I do think that Penn State was very good this year. They had the best defensive lineman in the country, in my opinion, and Abdul Carter.
Yeah, Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network, has him projected as the number 1 pick in the draft.
And it's just like, okay, I don't know. I'm conflicted on how to grade them as like going into the offseason. Like, how do you grade Penn State's year? Obviously, the fans enjoyed it and they deserved all the joy that came along with it. But like, again,
I think
still
you
lost their
graded-
2 biggest games of the year, right?
You grade it pretty much the same way you had been grading them, as they're still not quite where they want to be. Now, it felt like they went farther because they did go farther. They had not made the Final Four. They were a program that had the 12-team playoff existed, would have made it 6 times since
the number 1
2016.
team. They're the
between
number
now
1
and then.
bubble team.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. So they would have been in the mix. And this is something to think about. And you and I have talked about doing some program rankings in the offseason. And I think one thing we should consider is, in the past 10 years, if this playoff system existed, how many people would have made the playoff? Because as we learned in this one, it's a small sample size, but Ohio State, which would not have made it, ends up winning the whole thing. Notre Dame, which you think they would have voted differently, but they didn't vote.
I don't think they would have. They would have.
But,
yeah.
Well, but they didn't vote that way. Notre Dame would not have made it in the
Which is
old
what
system.
makes that exercise hard, because you don't know how they would have ranked them in another
well,
system.
But the one that would have been 8th would not have made it.
Right.
Like, Ohio State this year would not have made it.
1,000% would not have made it.
So all
right?
those
1,000%?
I think so, yes. So all those Penn State teams that didn't make it, that would have made, because remember, we're talking about they were finishing like 5th and 6th. So this would have been teams that had a home game that would have, like,
yeah,
they might have made it to the national title game in some of those years. We just don't know.
Well, they just had the fortune of playing teams that weren't as far as they are in their build.
Yes.
So like that's the thing. It's like, it's not like to say that teams had an easy path. It's not fair. But
they
like,
had an easier path.
But
like Ohio State had the hardest path.
I don't
Let's
want to
be
like
real
take
here.
a crap on the teams that they've played. Like SMU, I thought was a very good football team this year and deserved to be in.
Yeah.
Boise, again, one of the best players in college football, tough team. But like Penn State didn't have to beat like Georgia. You know what I mean? And Georgia wasn't that great this year, but they still didn't have to.
Notre
get
Dame
through
had to
it.
beat them. Yeah.
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 And it's just like, to me, like this debate, and we had it with Notre Dame too, of like, did Notre Dame's win over Indiana end the postseason big wins drought? Like
the Georgia one did.
Like
so,
but like if you're a Penn State fan,
Yeah.
you are happy about the results of this season, although probably still in pain with the way that the Notre Dame game ended. But do you feel like the ails that troubled you? Like that's the thing too. It's like
no, you're still saying, can we please have some wide receivers? Can we please have an explosive?
But are you still
offense?
saying, can we please beat Ohio State?
Yes.
Like, is that, or like, do you feel better about it? Because like that's another thing too. Like the rebirth off season too. It's like Ryan Day.
The question is the next iteration of Ohio State going to look anything like this one? It'll still be really good.
Who are the coaches that righted their wrongs the most this year? Like I think Ryan Day is probably the clear answer there, because
Marcus Freeman,
I think, is another one.
But I think James Franklin too.
Did Dabo Sweeney? I think you put him on that list, maybe in terms of off the field.
Well, if you've been listening to me at all, my Dabo, the trajectory for me on Dabo is up. So,
but like, so where do you put James Franklin on that list? Is what I'm getting at. Like, is James Franklin on the righted the wrongs list? Or did circumstance blind us from the fact that nothing's changed?
He's incrementally better because he got to the Final Four. The underlying issues he still has to prove he can do something about, which is go get some freaking receivers.
But then but also too, like, how do you beat Ohio State?
With some freaking receivers.
And how else? By investing in the program and paying big money for big boy salaries and taking their defensive coordinator. Like, I mean, and like, okay, now let's go to the Ohio State side of this.
Yes.
When the Jim Knowles Oklahoma stuff came up, Oklahoma fans were, rightfully getting kind of excited. And there was this like online battle between Ohio State and Oklahoma fans of like, why would he take a demotion? Okay. And with Oklahoma, like, I feel like if Jim Knowles would have gone to Oklahoma for a big money raise, that would have made sense because of region, his past, where
But it's not. He's from the Northeast.
No, I know, but he might have liked living in Oklahoma. Like it would have been a change to another blue blood program.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's the thing about that, and this is where it's a little bit different because the job at Penn State as a defensive coordinator and the job at Oklahoma as a defensive coordinator are two different jobs. James Franklin is not a defensive guy. He's never called a defense as far as I know. Like he's not going to be over your shoulder constantly. It is Brent Venables' defense at Oklahoma. So if you're a defensive coordinator used to some autonomy, which you had at Ohio State, which you had at Oklahoma State, which you had at Duke before that, you're probably not going to go to the place where the guy above you is a very accomplished defensive coordinator.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I just mean optically.
Right.
Optically, I think going from Ohio State to Oklahoma would make sense. The thing I think that is rubbing people the wrong way, and we have to call what it is that Ohio State is a week removed, literally today, from winning a national title, and he's going to an in-division or past in-division rival that isn't on the same playing field at the moment. And that confuses people. So the question you have to ask yourself is why. And, Letterman Row has a story up right now. That's our On3 Ohio State site, theorizing that one of the things that, has been an online rumor for the past 6 months. It's not like a hidden secret that he and Larry Johnson were butting heads on strategy in terms of the defensive line and stuff. But it's like Larry also Johnson, too, it's like
the longtime defensive line coach who, by the way, spent most of his career at Penn State.
But it's like, it does feel like, and I don't know what the answer is, but it does feel like there's something a little bit deeper happening here than just, he got a raise, because we both know sitting here that Ohio State wasn't going to lose him over money.
No.
And they would be prepared to pay him, especially considering the fact that, they just accomplished what they did. Like the continuity, it's like, because to me, like Ohio State seems very well built to continue to compete at that level for the next 5 years. And it seems likely the way it did in 14 too, that they'll win another one in the next few years. And it's like, if you're Jim Knowles, it's like, what are you doing? And I think that rubs people the wrong way.
Yeah.
And it's,
I mean, an Ohio State fan is going to go, why on earth would you leave us
for them?
And it's not the same when it's your job. You think about it differently.
Yeah.
If you feel like you would be in a better position, or maybe you didn't get along with the people you were working with and you wanted to work with some other people,
or maybe get more leeway in terms of doing things your way.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, it's like the thing that bothers people, just to go back though, is just like, it worked. Like whatever you're upset about at Ohio State, like it worked. Like your defense was awesome and people think you're a god. So like, I don't know, maybe from a personal fulfillment standpoint, there's something
think about
there.
Where
but
Ohio
like,
State was when he got hired, because they fired Kerry Coombs because they gave up so many big plays.
Defense stunk.
They were it was
really for their standard.
Yeah,
but that was the Alabama.
But they were
tough
basically
Portland
a middle of the pack defense because they couldn't stop giving up big plays.
Yeah, and you know what? It worked. So like, I'm sure more will come to light in terms of like what did this. But like, I did not have Ohio State defensive coordinator job open on my bingo card. That said, like we said on the show last week, when you win national championships and you have results out there, everybody on your team, whether it be a player or a coach, is a more sought after, more coveted asset. And it's like, too, it's like, how much can Ohio State, like how many corners can Ohio State defend before stuff like this happens?
Well, I mean, that's
like,
the thing.
pay him.
Every
It's like someone's going to leave.
Yeah, every time you're successful, everybody wants to take a piece of what you got.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, Ohio State has the ability to go out and say, hey, who would like to come coach Caleb Downs for lots of money? So they're going to be able to pick who they want pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'll be able to find a defensive coordinator that, is qualified. The thing that stinks is when you have somebody in your system already that had something that worked.
Yeah.
Having to retool something that you didn't feel you were going to need to retool is just another offseason step.
If you're going to have to reboot, this is the time to reboot, because how many, like we mentioned, Caleb Downs, was it 2 starters coming back from that defense?
Yeah, Igman Nosen's coming back,
so
the defensive
Yeah.
back. I don't have to look that up. I don't know how many, but they're losing a lot of people. And also too, it's kind of like the same thing like with Michigan last year.
Yeah.
You won a national championship, you're good for a little bit. And I know that Ohio State
it doesn't work that way at Ohio State, are you?
But I'm saying
yeah.
if you lose, if you make the trade before the national title happens and say, okay, Ohio State fans, you're going to win the national title this year, but the consequence of this is you're going to lose everybody, and your team is going to have to, reload a little bit. I think everybody automatically takes that deal, right? So you revel in the national title. You, what do they say when a breakup happens? Don't be sad that it's over. Be happy that it happened. You know what I mean? I don't know. But I thought, to me, the more significant thing in this whole storyline wasn't what happened at Ohio State. It's what is Penn State trying to be? And that's the most important thing, because now go get a receiver.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was a nice step in the right direction in terms of, commitment to winning and paying the money to show that you're serious about raising the bar on that.
Yeah, and I think they are serious. I think Penn State has shown that over the last few years.